Hi, I'm Dan. I'm an alcoholic. Wow, you can hear this, right? Usually I can't. I'm happy to be here. I've done this work with a Big Book Step Study sponsor and a loving God, and meetings like this, and I've been given an opportunity through this work to see the truth when I choose to see it. And I'm very grateful for Tina to ask me to speak, and Jen for chairing, and resentment. Who wouldn't want to talk about that as an alcoholic, you know? So I'm going to do it. So I prepared my fifth step. No, I'm just kidding. So I had a little bit of, I always think that resentment is, I can't live with it, I can't live without it. It's always going to be there in some form, but like I said, this work has given me the tools to examine resentment when it comes up, and to try to find the truth. And I ask God for the truth in situations like that. I didn't do so well last night. I went to a play with other AA people, and I brought my son. We went down to a play in Connecticut. It was a wonderfully done play. And we had a great time. We went out to dinner beforehand, and when the night was done, we probably got home about 10:30. I woke up, and my son I heard my son retching in the bathroom, and so as, like any parent, you hear that, you rush to the scene, and I rushed to the scene, and I wanted to help him, and then I realized I was standing in a lot of it, in bare feet. And I had some resentment over that. So I was haphazardly trying to help him while scolding him at the same time. But anyways, we had a little laugh about it this morning. I told him that there was an easier way to get me to clean the bathroom, but don't do it at 3 in the morning, So that was my experience last night, that I fell short, but I made an amend this morning. I told him I was sorry. I said, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I can see that because he did it in the sink. That's a bad place to do it. And he's a plumber, he should know better. So, but we had a laugh about it this morning, and I made my amend, and those are the things that I can do today. And that's not this step, but resentment, I hope I didn't tell this story here before, but I remember, I used to say that I felt like I was born an alcoholic, and I was born with everything all ready to go. I do remember being happy because I remember in first grade, we were out at recess on the last day of school, and we're all running around, and I reached into a bush and I got bit by a snake. And, the dramatics of young, 6-year-olds, we're all saying, it was a rattlesnake. And I'm running to the nurse's office with friends behind me, and they're saying, a rattlesnake, get away from him, And so I make it in there, and I go home in the nurse's van on the last day of school in first grade. And, everyone's waving through the window. I felt like the NFL player that took a bad hit. He's on the stretcher, and he slowly raises that, I'm okay. And I felt good. I felt like I had people. I felt like I had friends. I felt like I was connected. And I didn't know that was going to be my last day at that school. So I went to a new school at the start of second grade, and I'm nervous. I'm full of fear. And I go down to this, I'm looking for the action, so I see some of the kids, they're playing kickball down at the end of the field, so I mosey on down there with tons of fear. I'm just so scared, and I don't know how to play kickball. I didn't know how, but I wanted to play, so they said, all right, give it a try, and I kicked the ball goes to first before I got there. He says, you're out, and I said, no, I'm not. And he said, get out of here. I'm not a victim because he said that. I'm not sure. This is not a victim statement. It's just something, I didn't know how to deal with that because I had no experience with that. and enter resentment. Enter resentment. And it might not be the kind of resentment you're thinking. This kid, Brian, I even remember his name. I was 7. I still remember who beat me in a spelling bee in 4th grade. Lauren. And I messed up the word chrysanthemum. How could you do that? But anyways, so this kid, Brian, told me to get lost. And I was kicking dirt, or kicking a can down the road, that classic picture. And I wasn't particularly mad at Brian. I was a little bit. It was in my 4th step, but I got really angry at myself. And I instantly wanted to be someone else. I was so angry at me, and I wanted to change. I wanted to be anything that any one of you wanted me to be. From that point, I remember that. It was such a desperate. I became a prisoner in my own body. Nothing got better at that school. There were kids that were cruel. Kids are cruel, And I realized in my 4th step that I was cruel to people before that. I punched a kid in the eye over a necktie over a toy chest in preschool. And the only reason I remembered that is doing the writing. Did the same thing myself. So anyways, enter resentment, and I didn't want to be myself. And the next 5 years were brutal. I carved out a couple of friends there. And when I was 12, in 7th grade, I think it was 7th grade, yeah, I found alcohol. And it took away everything. It took away all that feeling of not being good enough, but only while I was under the influence of it, So I was, my mother had remarried, and my mother had 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. This gentleman who I loved dearly and was still in touch had 2 girls and a boy. So 3 boys, 3 girls. His last name started with B. We became the blank bunch at church and all these things. Not that matters at all. But anyways, they had an expansive liquor cabinet, and I had a paper route at the time, so I strapped on my tiny little Walkman, about that big. Held one cassette, and it was like 10 times the size of the cassette. It was my personal music system. I had these big earmuff headphones. But anyways, I go out to do my paper route, and I'm listening to the Jay Giles Band. Hey. That's right. Roller skating. Light brown roller skates, by the way. Thank you very much. Spin around if you remember that. Anyway, so I go out, and before I went out, I said, I'm going to try that stuff. And I turned one of those bottles upside down. I drank as much as I could, and then I went out on my paper route, and it was magnificent. I felt in love. It became my higher power for as long as it would let me, and I chased that. I chased it forever, and all the wreckage is there. That's all that mattered to me. And whatever resentments came up, because they came up all the time, I swam in resentment. I did the backstroke in resentment. I loved it. I found out that resentment is perceived power for me. It's a useful weapon, and I made acquaintances with who I called my best friend, who wasn't, but I called him my best friend because he was tougher than me. People respected him more than me, and he used to walk around clenching his jaw, and that little muscle right here used to be going like this all the time, and no one messed with him. I don't know why. So I'd walk around with him, clenching my jaw, balling up my fists, and that was. I had to hang around people that appeared like they could handle themselves and stuff, because I still had all that, all that fear. And I kind of, I started, started playing that tough guy role, and it was easier with other people. And that's what I did, and resentment played right into that. It was my weapon, and I would judge, and I didn't have the capacity, like I saw in my writing, to see that other people have their own issues. I never knew that things were out of my control. It was all about me and my hurt. And you know what? Resentment gives me the right to be right. When I'm in resentment, there's no challenge to that in my mind. It's I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm a victim. And resentment and self-pity are close cousins for me. They are absolutely in the same bed. They are sleeping together in my sick area. And I was the best. I was the best at self-pity. I could be wronged at a birthday party. For me, and I hated that feeling. I guess I loved the feeling and I hated the feeling, It was a duality. And my whole life was a duality. At the core of me, I really wanted to be a good person. I really wanted to be a good person. I wanted to have success. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to enjoy life with people. I was brought up with good morals, and those slowly disappeared. Alcohol became my master, and as that progressed, my morals and values declined at the same rate until I had nothing left. And then nothing bothered me. None of my behavior bothered me anymore because I did it so often. And I was so filled with that acid that, it talks about resentment being the number one offender. It kills us. It kills us. And for me, resentment crops up because I'm fearful. I'm fearful. I'm scared of everything. I'm scared of your opinions. I'm scared of what you think of me. If I let myself go, I'm going to walk out of here saying, they hate me. They hate me. Oh, I did a terrible job. I want to apologize. I spoke at the Wednesday Big Book, and I saw some people walking in, and every time someone that was there. But this is a different step. We're on the second part of step 2, and this is great to be sharing on this. I love how it says in this chapter that when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. Because we always talk about a threefold disease. We talk about that physical compulsion for alcohol. Once we put it in our body, we cannot stop. I cannot stop. I'll speak for myself. And then we talk about that mental obsession that we cannot get rid of. It encompasses us. There's nothing more important than alcohol or the pursuit of it or the thought of it. But it says that if I treat this spiritual part of this disease, and it says that resentment is a spiritual disease, that those two things disappear. So what am I going to concentrate on? I'm not going to just concentrate on not drinking. I'm not going to do that. I tried that. And I told this on Wednesday, but I wanted Tony Robbins in the 90s to get me sober. I got that. I stole that tape program from my mother, and I listened to it. I was willing to go to any lengths. So Tony couldn't get me sober because in a month I smashed a car up at 70 miles an hour with a kid that I convinced to come with me in St. Louis at a new job. And I cost him a job. I cost him a career, this kid. This kid went home to Ohio with the whole side of broken ribs because of me. That's what I do. I don't even know where I was. But the spiritual disease, I have to treat that. I have to treat that, and it's resentment. It's fear leading to that resentment, but the resentment is the active part. It's the active part. Fear to me is my state. That's the state I'm in. Resentment is the way I get it out. I combat fear with resentment. Because if I put resentment in between me and you can't hurt me. Because I'll tell you, I'm pissed. I'm pissed. And I'm more pissed than you. And then if you match my resentment, I'm gonna raise the stakes. That's the bar game. That's the bar game. I used to bartend on Canterbury Street, right down here on Lower Grafton Street at Uncle Charlie's. Ladies, welcome. You know that's a classy place, right? But there was not a lot of kindness in those halls, to put it mildly. I can't imagine what it would be like today. I mean, Charlie's isn't there. His daughter died of an overdose a couple of years ago. Someone I was very close with, you know. This thing kills. But there wasn't a lot of kindness in there. There was not a lot of kindness in me. And that's the way I lived for a long time. And I used that resentment shield against everybody. I walked around still, and I hadn't seen this guy Mark in a long time. My best friend in second grade. I was still clenching my jaw. I was still balling up my fists, and I was still acting like I was better than you. And man, I'll tell you, I was better than everybody. I was better than everybody. I had to be. Well, then I'd have to be me, you know. So I was still the kid on the kickball diamond. Up until 31 years old, when I walked into a speaker meeting, an AA meeting that I asked someone in desperation to take me to, and I went there, and two great things happened at that meeting. I heard the person speaking at the lectern, and I identified, and I'm so glad that I identified. I didn't fight this thing one bit. I said, as soon as I heard 5 minutes of it, I said, this place is for me, and I can't believe that there's a place for me. And the second thing that happened is that a bunch of men were walking up to me after the meeting. They assumed I was new. I don't know why. And they were handing me slips of paper with their names and numbers on it. And they were saying, you want to go to a meeting together? You want to ride to a meeting? I don't know if you have a car. You know, you want to go out for a coffee? If you ever need to talk, give me a call. It was like 3 or 4 guys. I was mystified, because out there's always a catch. There's always a catch. And I kept looking in their eyes, and there was no catch. Just like right now, I'm looking at all of you. And there's kindness in here. There's love in here. There's the absence of everything that I was out there in here. I can't help but grow in here if I do just a tiny bit of work. And let me tell you something. The 4th step was a tiny bit of work comparatively. I would have sawed off my arm to have what I have today. If I knew what I would have today, I would have sawed off my arm, case closed. But I don't have to do that. All I have to do is dive into these things. And I'm pissed at Mr. Brown too, because that's wrong right here. His attention to his wife. Still hits me. Anyway. All I got to do is dive in. And then I get healed through my resentments, my very shield that I was holding up against the world. I get to be healed through that stuff, because I get to look at that stuff. I get to see what it affects, and then I get to turn that stuff around. And you know, some of those things, you know, with where was I selfish? Where was I dishonest? Where was I lying to myself? I was a consummate liar. I lied about everything to myself. And I'm gullible. So when I lied to myself, I believed it. I believed everything that I said. That's dangerous. And I was a dangerous person, you know. All sorts of people were trying to help me. Cops, ambulances, lawyers, judges, they were all trying to, they really were. But anyways, where was I selfish? What did I want? I just wanted to feel good, I thought. I just wanted everyone to straighten out so I could be okay. That's what I wanted, you know? And my mindset was, if I can control everything around me and everyone around me, I'll be okay. Well, I live in a world with a lot of people and a lot of things going on, and that's a tall order, especially for a fearful alcoholic. Look at the irony there. I am scared of everything, but I want everything to be the way I want it to be. But I'm not willing to do anything except cop resentments and hurt people because I'm scared. It's so nice to be able to sit back and look. Sit back and look, and that's exactly what I did. Where am I dishonest? You know, maybe other people have their own issues. There's none of my business. How about that, dishonesty? I never had that thought before I started doing this. Honest to goodness, everything was my business, and I could heal you with my words at a bar. I could fix you, I just couldn't fix me. You know, where was I self-seeking? What did I do? And I held resentments, and I did a lot of other things. And it's kind of 10:30. Oh, okay. I'm going to tell you a story about the mayor. I had this friend, Dave, just an acquaintance, and I used to have a quarter keg of beer in my tub every night. So I didn't take a lot of showers, but I drank a lot. So people would be, you know, if I happened to work that day, which was half and half, 50-50, people would be waiting on my steps at my apartment in Worcester on Seaver Street. And they'd be waiting to get in to start, you know, start drinking. So this guy, Dave, we called him the mayor because he was like the town drunk type of guy, and nothing went wrong, nothing went well in his life. And so I came home from work. It was a Friday, it must have been, because I had a wad of money, and the mayor followed me into my room, and I counted my money in front of him. And I always made a little more than my friends for some reason. I don't know why. But I had this little box that I keep my money in. So I counted out my money in front of him, I put it in the box, and I shoved it under my bed where no one would ever look, right? And, you know, the night ensues, you know, the party ensues, this and that, everyone's drunk, everyone goes home, and there's a lot of money gone. And So I confronted the mayor, and he ended up admitting to it and this and that. And here I am in my resentments. Okay, I'm in the resentments, and I'm saying, Dave blank, you know, he stole money from me. It's a slam dunk. I'm right. He stole money from me. It's not my fault. That's crap. That's crap. You know where I was selfish? I always held myself above David. I was so much better than him, and I wanted to show him. I was looking back at that, and I was better than him. And I was taking my time counting that in front of him. He didn't have any money. That's who I was. So I turned it around, you know. I was dishonest. I held a resentment against him because he reacted to me acting like I'm better than him, showing him that I'm better than him, because that's who I am. I hurt people, you know. But anyways, that's just a benign example. And just another quick one. I'm sorry to take up time, but my mother remarried, I was telling you, and this man's two daughters and his son couldn't stand my mother. They couldn't stand my mother. I had so many resentments against them. The house was a war zone. I wanted to pick up a drink, you know, and I did. But it was a war zone, and I had all sorts of resentment against these step-sisters and brothers. And slam dunk. They just hated my mother. Well, you know what? You know what I never considered, and you're going to be aghast, perhaps, that their mother died of brain cancer just 3 or 4 years before, and I didn't even ever consider how they might feel with a new mother in their life, especially my mother. I mean, she's tough. She's tough. She's tough. Honestly, never thought of it. It was all about me and how I felt and how I was being wronged and how they were angry all the time at me, my mother, my sister, my little brother. You know, it was, that's where the disease takes me. I can't see anything for real. But after doing this, I have the tools to do that today. I have the tools to do that today. And this has been a miracle for me. This is the difference between living and dying for me. And I'm not talking about a knife in my heart. I'm talking about walking around dead. Anyone remember what that feels like? I do. Dead. And I was listening to a CD of John the Indian, and he said, this is a disease that kills you long before you are dead. It's an awful way to go, because you're gone already, you know? So today, I've been relieved of that with having done this work and secured a relationship with a higher power that I can trust, you know? God's good to me. God's good to me. I got to ask him for help. I got to do the work. I got to see the truth. He's got to give it to me, and I got to ask. And it's been a miracle for me. This is the best my life has ever been today. Keeps getting better. Keeps getting better. So if you're on the fence about doing a 4-step, it's the most liberating thing I've ever done in my life. It has freed me, and I never have to be alone. I have a higher power that I can trust, and I have fellowship with people that are moving in the same direction. I have been given this for nothing, and that's the same as I had when I got here, to offer. I had nothing to offer. Now I have nothing that's vexing me. I have a solution to everything. God will solve all of my problems if I seek him. That's what I try to do today. Anyways, thanks for letting me share.